Welcome back to Lost in Roshar, the ultimate journey through the Stormlight Archive. I'm Christian Kremling.
And I'm Jimmy Stormbless. Today we are diving into chapters 45 and 46 of The Way of Kings, and as always, full spoilers ahead for all of the Stormlight Archive, including the novella. So if you haven't read it yet, we'll see you later. For everyone else, welcome back to Lost in Roshar. Christian, I'm back again. It's good to be here, and I was just curious. The big question of the day is, how are you doing?
I'm doing well, mate. You proved yourself last week. You're allowed back in the building. I've given you the new set of keys. Jake's not too happy, but there are positions in the mailroom open for Jake, and we welcome him.
Someone egged my house the other day and had a Canadian flag on the back of a Prius, and I'm pretty sure it was Jake.
We'll wait for Jake's response to the allegations in the coming weeks.
If he listens to the show or not regularly.
Oh, he's a listener.
He better be.
He's a listener. A Parshendi listener, maybe. But no, I'm good, dude. It's what a great bunch of chapters today. It's going to be a big episode.
Mm-hmm.
And last episode might not be as big because bloody YouTube thought we were inappropriate, and they took away our monetization, which means it doesn't show up for people. Mm-hmm. What did we do wrong, mate? What did we do wrong last episode?
I've said a lot of dodgy things on this show and on many other shows. I don't remember being dodgy last episode. I really couldn't think of anything, unless we had an outtake that we didn't take out when editing. But I really don't remember ever being inappropriate last week.
The only thing I could think of was the extended description of the chasms. When I said it was calm, and you described bodies for a good 5 minutes, maybe that's what YouTube was.
I may have done that. Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. I mean, I've said way worse things though on other things, and not.
Yeah.
And some people are thinking, well, it's just monetization. But whenever your monetization on YouTube is restricted, it actually dampens the reach it has, and it will actually not show up on people's homepages. But also, it can actually skip people's subscription feed depending on their settings. Yeah. Especially if it gets labeled as adults only, it can be very troublesome, I guess, is for the reach of the episode.
Yeah, I'm not too worried about the monetization. Those 5 cents can come next week, but I'm just I would like people to listen if possible. That would be nice. And I'm pretty sure we can it's nothing that bad, YouTube. Come on. So I requested a human being look at it. So I'm sure we're in a long queue of 1 million people asking for a human being. So yeah, look, the episode was a bit late. This one hopefully will be a bit more on time, and it can be a little double feature. Hopefully we can be good boys this week and keep the algorithm happy.
I'm going to try to keep it clean. And obviously a big shout out to all of our Spotify and Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to podcast listeners as well. We asked last week whether or not some of you have found us just through the podcasting platform instead of the YouTube base that Christian has over on his channel. And it turns out that there are a ton of you. There's a large amount of people who have just found us organically through the search on Spotify or Apple. And that is so cool to me. I think that that's great.
Yeah, it surprised me, to be honest. I felt I kind of felt like if I started this without that base on YouTube, that it would just be a fart in the wind, as they say. YouTube, let that one pass. Surely that's okay. But that people were searching, someone was searching for music to listen to while rereading Stormlight, and we came up. So we're musical, mate. We're musical.
I think it's interesting because we get, sometimes thousands of views on our videos on YouTube, and then we get thousands of downloads. And I'm like, oh, those are different thousands of people. For some reason in my head, I'm like, oh, it's the same. But when you take it and you say, well, a lot of this is unique listeners and viewers, and you add it together, you're like, we got an audience. People listen when we talk, which is very weird.
Yeah, I had the same thing. I'm like, oh, so it's someone on YouTube who's going in the car and they've opened it on Spotify. Couldn't possibly be 2 people. Yeah, I really wish I could know the actual size of the audience, which I feel will grow significantly next year.
It's a lot bigger than we realized, I think.
Yeah.
It's the main thing. And hey, Manscaped, if you're listening, we'll run ads. I'm just saying, bro.
I want to know what the first ad's going to be. Jimmy's going to come to me with some dodgy little company like, dude, it's going to work.
Bro, we've had some bangers on Bend the Knee. Like we did some like men's health stuff, and those ad reads were fantastic. Some of my best work. It's amazing.
You're great at those ad reads. I'll have to get
reading ads.
I think I just got to lean into the Australian side of things. Like, g'day guys, I've got a great new deal. Do Kango 24 in the code box and get your free bloody Christmas bauble.
Get your pluggers.
yeah, your pluggers.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah, for a person who lives in Australia, I've got a pretty mild accent. There are some true blue Aussies out there I don't stand a chance against, but I can do it when the time calls for it. I can be as Aussie as you like.
I mean, as someone who grew up in West Virginia, my accent is very light, if non-existent. Like if you go back to where I'm from and you hear people talk, you're like, why don't you talk like that? And I'm like, I never have ever. I don't know why.
Not even as a kid.
Hi man, we're gonna go down there to Piggly Wiggly. Like that's how they talk.
Yeah.
My wife has it a little bit more than I do. But even then, I can't really tell that she does. Now, at her work and stuff, people will be like, where's that accent from? It sounds dumb. Like that's rude.
I feel like, you know what? Some kids here get like little American accents because they're so like chronically online.
Just watching Shroud play Counter-Strike or something.
Basically. Yeah. Like the time on the iPad correlates perfectly to like how American you sound here.
Everyone starts talking like Brandon Sanderson. Hello there. Today, Dragonsteel. Just
Jimmy's on a roll with his impressions today.
We're on something. I don't know if it's a roll.
Yeah. How have you been, dude? In this brief moment between episodes, what's going on?
Just waiting for that long, peaceful sleep. And just wondering when the dirt naps got. No, I'm just kidding. I'm doing good, man. Still battling my staph infection. It's actually getting worse somehow, which is not cool. But you move on and journey before destination. Does that work here? I think that works here. I'm good, dude. I'm excited for the holidays. I've been reading a lot of really great books, like outside of just like the rereads that I do for podcasting. And there's nothing that makes me happier, I think, than finding new favorite reads and new authors and new adventures and emotions to go through. But I've also been playing a lot of Call of Duty, which is a problem. I got 96 hours in that game, and that's embarrassing. I'm embarrassed to say that.
It's been out a week, guys.
We might have to edit that out because I'm embarrassed by it, honestly. I don't feel good about it.
You're welcome here, Jim. We're here to help. 96 hours in a week. So, I'm trying to do the maths on that. 96.
It was 10 days. So it's about 9 hours a day, maybe almost 10 hours a day. It's a problem. It's a problem.
And your wife is like slowly.
She's been gone for a few days. No, I'm just kidding.
You're just like imagine like, would you? Oh no, it's going to be too much of a gaming tangent. I'll just say we're here to help Jimmy, and it's going to be all right. We'll slowly get those numbers down, just like your KD slowly decreasing.
I am an old man now. I can't hang with these kids anymore. But you know what I did to appease my wife is I bought her the new Mario game on Switch because she loves the Switch.
Oh, Mario Wonder! She's
busy. She's busy. She's not realizing the depths of my addiction, which is nice. I can put it off a little bit longer until we have to have the intervention. So,
smart tactic. I mean, Mario Wonder is so good. I've been playing that a lot too.
Dude, when are we going to get the Stormlight RPG? Like when?
Well, we're getting like the tabletop stuff, but can you imagine like an open world Roshar game? Oof.
Oh, I mean, honestly, even Mistborn, like obviously we like Stormlight more, but I mean, Mistborn, just the magic system and the battling, it would be sick.
It's made to be a video game. It's perfect. You got all your abilities and stuff. You could do like a Overwatch style Mistborn game because there's like all the counters and stuff.
Yeah, that would be pretty cool.
And then like one person becomes a full-on Mistborn in the match and can do everything, like all 10 medals.
Mistborn MOBA. It's going to happen.
I think I legitimately think it will happen. But I think by the time we get Cosmere games will look very different with this whole AI uprising, destroying / enhancing the world. It's going to look so different to what we're imagining. And I think about that for the adaptation too. I'm like, I feel like it's going to be some new, like, I don't even think we should be thinking in terms of like traditional movies and TV shows by the time that stuff's coming out.
Yeah, there's going to be a lot of stuff with augmented reality and also AI curated content. I mean, we're going into some strange times. I read a book a long time ago called Life 3.0, and I can't remember the author now. I really wish I could. He's a brilliant guy, but was talking about this and basically how like he goes to this hypothetical scenario of where a company has developed an AI to like recommend media, and then it becomes able to create media. And basically there's an entire streaming platform that people don't even know that is like AI driven. And like, it is giving you the best thing and like best thing for you. This is before like what watch next on Netflix. Like this book was written before then. And it's crazy how far it's gone into his hypothetical where I'm like, okay, like he's gotten a lot of this right. Like he was definitely on the path, and he was just talking about like Life 3.0. Like, what does that look like? And it's an interesting book. I recommend the audiobook if anyone's interested in what I'm talking about. It's very good nonfiction. It's not very long either.
Yeah, there's in the new season of Black Mirror, there's this episode. Have you watched it? Jane is Awful.
No, I haven't.
This episode. So like she, you sign your contract with Netflix, the Netflix equivalent, and you don't realize you're signing away the rights to your life to be adapted. And they take her everyday life and adapt it into a Netflix show. And then she tries to like sue Netflix, but it's all CGI representations, so it's not actually her. And and then her suing Netflix becomes the next episode of the show, and it's like in real time. And then they start making shows on everyone,
So meta.
making them look as awful as possible because like negativity is like what drives engagement. But all that is to say, like media is changing so quick. And I can imagine wearing my little, my Apple Vision Pros with like a little spren in my house, being like,
jeez,
clean the dishes, Christian. Say the words.
Well, there's going to be a time here in the future, bro, where our podcast will look like we're both sitting in the same room. I mean, have you seen the Lex Friedman, Mark Zuckerberg interview?
I did see that.
It's the craziest thing I've ever seen. Like it literally looked like they were in the room together.
Yeah. And to them, they said it felt that way too.
So that me and you will be doing that at some point, probably the next 3 years.
Oh, there's something just so disturbing about that though. Like I'm like smiling at my wall with my big, like mosquito eyes, being like, "Hey, Jimmy!" Like there's something dystopian about it.
Let me connect the sensor so I can feel your handshake. It's like, what the hell?
Is your safe hand covered? Over the ocean, Jimmy.
Oh my goodness, that'll be the Roshar After Dark episodes. Where
there's a few little safe hand moments these chapters. Kaladin feels a bit of a chill.
Yeah, I mean, listen, it's biology. It's fine. Yeah.
Oh my god, get your like Stormlight VR enhanced safe hand
covered.
Covered, exactly. Covered,
yes,
people.
We will actually be selling them on our Etsy shop where you can throw it on top of your Quest VR headset.
I think you're right, man. Like there's going to be, you know what? You're right. I think we will be wearing those headsets by like, episode 200.
Yeah.
For sure. Why not?
I don't think it's all that far away, to be honest. So we'll see though.
Fun. Yeah.
What do I know? I don't know anything. I barely know anything about the Cosmere.
Oh yeah, you got called out a little bit, mate, last week. Guys, don't be surprised. Jimmy's like, he's a voice to the voiceless. The people who are too scared to be like, what is this in the Cosmere?
I'm never afraid to say I don't know. Yeah. I welcome the actuallys because I learn when this happens. And I'm going to tell you what, this episode this week is going to be a lot of me dusting off the chalkboard and cleaning the erasers, pounding them together because Christian, I forgot these chapters existed. I remember some of it, but like we went to Shadesmar in these two chapters in the Way of Kings.
Yeah, man. Yeah, we did.
This is wild. There's stuff in here that I still don't really know what it means.
I've got my glasses right at the edge of the tip of my nose. I'm ready to push them up, and I'm ready to tell you a few things, mate.
I think we got to jump into these because these are two important, humongous chapters. This is almost, I think, 40 pages or 30 pages. I think it's about 40. And these might be the most important chapters we've read that we know of, at least so far. Maybe there's some big stuff that we're not aware of yet until book 5 or 6 or 7 or 8, 9, 10 comes out. But these ones seem very, very important, not just to the immediate plot, but also to the Stormlight Archive as a larger picture. So amazing chapters, really great stuff. I would say this is where I would point to people would be like, if you read these two and don't like them, there's a chance you're not going to like this book. I think that this is where it's like pretty evident that there's some cool stuff going on. So this is chapters 45 and 46, and we're going to start with chapter 45, which is called Shadesmar. And here we go with some pronunciations with the epigraph. All right. Yelignar, called Blightwind, was one that could speak like a man, though often his voice was accompanied by the wails of those he consumed. The unmade were obviously fabrications of folklore. Curiously, most were not considered individuals, but instead personifications of kinds of destruction. This quote from Traxel, line 33, considered a primary source, though I doubt its authenticity. Well, Yasna, I think that you need to be a little bit more open-minded, because I absolutely think that these things are true. And this also brings up a lot of questions about, is there, we talk about the 10 deaths in these chapters, and do those go against the 10 ideals? Is there an opposite to the 10 radiants? Is that a thing?
Yeah, there's just 10 is so big. I don't know if there's an opposite. Not that I know of.
It's something a lot of people have speculated online, because I was doing some Googling, and it does seem that people that seems to be something people really like to talk about. There being an opposite.
I mean, on the back of the Way of Kings, I don't know if it's in yours. It's in the Leatherbound. You get like the opposite of the 10 Knights Radiant orders.
Yeah,
in some sort of like chart with the glyphs and stuff. So there is a counter, but I don't know if there's like 10 heralds, so to speak. It might just be like the 10 orders have a counterpart.
Yeah, like 10 orders, and then there's the 10 deaths, which are mentioned. And I think people are like, well, what are the 10 deaths? Because we hear them. Yeah, we hear them about them in a Dalinar chapter as well. And I think a lot of people are considering the fact that they may be tied to the Unmade. Okay, yeah, I could see that. Mm-hmm. Or it's just like all Rosharians are cats +1. Yes.
9. Did you look up this Unmade? I did a quick little search.
I did not.
Well, it shows up. It shows up later. In Oathbringer.
Oh, in Oathbringer. Okay.
Yeah, so it's like an Unmade that needs to like kind of infect a person in order to function. You got to like swallow a gemstone. It goes in the gemstone and it like powers you up into like crazy mode. And Amaram does that at the end of Oathbringer. He gets possessed by it, and that's when he faces off against Kaladin. So yes, this Unmade literally shows up, and that's why it says like, though often his voice was accompanied by the wails of those he consumed. So it's like that kind of like classic dual voice fantasy thing going on.
Yeah, kind of spooky. Cool. Yeah, I like it a lot. I guess, to give you guys a summary of what chapter 45 is, if you're just listening along and not reading, is Shallan studying Gavilar's meetings with the Parshendi before his death. She notices a lot of discrepancies about the uncharacteristic scholarly interest that Gavilar is taking in the Parshendi. And she's about to leave because she has stolen the Soulcaster. She has a ride that's coming. But you could tell she's a little bit shaken by it, and she's not sure what she's doing. But she ends up researching the Voidbringers, which then leads in to Kabsal coming in, and then them having a very philosophical discussion about the Voidbringers as well, which I think is just dripping with foreshadowing and misinformation. I'm so curious to hear what you have to say. But then he asks for some likenesses of her and some drawings, and she ends up doing these things, and this is where she ends up drawing something standing behind Kabsal, which we know is Pattern, right? At least I think. That's what I'm
sure he's one of them, because there's a bunch of them, right? I'm sure one of them is Pattern. Yeah.
Yes. And as she draws them, they come closer to her. She ends up running back to the room, tries to summon her shard blade, which is another moment I'm like, wait, what? And then ends up in a really weird sequence of events, ending up in Shadesmar, having a very nebulous conversation that I'm not still sure I understand. But then she ends up back in her room because Yasna calls out to her from outside her door, and she's terrified that she's going to be discovered that she was soulcasting. She cuts herself to explain the presence of the blood.
It was crazy. The absolute panic, the sense of panic is so good.
How can people read this and be like, yeah, all Shallan chapters are bunk? Like, I don't get it, dude.
Yeah. I mean, they probably gave up before this part, surely. When it's just like studying in the Palanaeum. This was like, these 2 chapters, it's like he turns up the pace and the heat so much. Like, we're getting there now. We're getting there.
Yeah, this is the best chapter so far in the series for me. Like, or I should
I
say,
agree.
not series, but the book in the reread. This has been the best
It's
chapter for me to
crazy,
reread. Yeah,
dude. The whole mechanic of her running and drawing, and then they closer and closer. It's like brilliant. It's going to be so good to see
very
when.
visual. Yes, very
Yeah,
visual for an adaptation. This would be one of those scenes where they would definitely have to, I think, stick close to the source material.
it's straight up out of a horror movie.
Yeah, it's good
It's
stuff.
it's straight up. I'm trying to like. It feels like there's something in a game. Well, it kind of reminded me of a little bit of. I can say this, Yumi, a little bit of Yumi with the painting aspect.
Yes,
I
I
was like,
no, I
that's pretty
totally
cool.
agree. I mean, every time I read Yumi, I kept thinking about these type of moments
Yeah,
because I did remember this.
yeah,
I remember the drawing. I remember Kabsal and then the thing behind and running away. But what I forgot was the Shardblade piece of it, and I also forgot the glass goblet filled with diamond spheres, and then like this weird conversation she's having get sent to Shadesmar when she's terrified. Like, I mean, I'm gonna open the floor to you. Explain this stuff.
Okay. Do you want to rewind first? Like, do you want to do
Yeah,
the
go ahead.
chapter in order? So
Yeah,
like,
absolutely.
so the first thing is like reading Gavilar's notes, and they're like,
Mm.
why was he so interested? Why was he so interested in the Parshendi? And it's like interesting to think about when did he turn into this like, oh, I want to be a herald kind of guy? Like, when was that
What
moment?
was the triggering event for that to occur?
Yeah, like it kind of seems like it has already occurred because like he's pretty interested in the Parshendi.
Yeah,
But at the same time, they're very. It's like imagine finding a whole new being that you can like have a conversation with. I
this
feel like
is
everyone would be interested in that.
this is a pivotal moment. You know what it reminds me of? It reminds me of the moment in A Song of Ice and Fire where Rhaegar Targaryen just comes out of the books one day and he goes, "It looks that I have to be a warrior." And people are like,
Yeah,
"Okay," and he'd always been a bookish guy, and then he just learned how to be a swordsman.
yeah,
And it's like, what made him do that? And now, in that series, we're not going to go into it, but like I think we figured it out. At least I
yeah.
feel pretty confident. And we don't have this answer for Gavilar yet. I don't think.
I don't think so either. So he says they also speak of their terrible gods, and we think they must be referring to several particularly large chasm great shells. And I'm like, I don't think I don't think so. Like,
So what do you think instead?
well, like their gods are the fused. Like that's who they see as their gods. So I'm pretty sure that's who they're talking about. But then there's this like weird majesty that they hold for the great shells. And I'm trying to I don't remember it exactly, but there is like a scene with Eshonai towards when we get that flashback of her in Rhythm of War. And there's like a moment with the great shell that made us all think like, is there like something more to these guys than just being big Kremlings? I don't know.
I mean, that is pretty cool. Let's not discount being massive Kremlings.
I mean, as one myself, we are pretty great. But yeah, I look. There's like this is what's so frustrating because you get told yes, these are the gods, but sometimes, I mean, often Sanderson flips that on its head. I feel like there's a bit more to the great. And I didn't research this, but I feel like there's more to the Great Shell relationship between them and the Parshendi. But I'm pretty sure they're talking about the fused.
Yeah, and a whole lot of misinterpretations on Gavilar's part, or really any of the scholars' parts. I mean, they clearly do not understand all the history because they're thinking that they've been cast out from the Tranquilin halls and all this other stuff. I mean, there's constant. I called it misinformation earlier, but maybe it's just they're just flat out wrong. I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Then the only other two lines I took from this was like he's writing about them compared to the Parshmen. He goes, perhaps they are distant cousins, as different from ordinary Parshmen as Alethi axehounds are from the Soleil breed. And then I was like, what does the Soleil breed of axehound look like? Is it a dog? Like, is it actually like a dog as we know it? Or is it just still a carapace thing? Because then my mind's like, where did they come from? Did dogs come from Ashen? You know?
Yeah, I mean, I'm super interested if any of the ecology came from there. Could it
Yeah.
survive? I mean, there's a lot.
I was just like, what are their dogs axe hounds look like? And then we hear about this guy Clade, who's like, where is their music? Because like, they communicate with rhythms and they have this musical connection, right?
Yeah.
And humans don't.
Mm-hmm.
we ain't that good. So Clade, I remember his name because I remember if there's one event I know really well, it's the assassination of Gavilar, and he was kind of
Yeah, I feel like that's your expertise in Stormlight.
Yeah, that's my if I had to publish a thesis, it's like the true story of the assassination. Clade was like somewhat involved because he's a member of one of the higher, like the Council of the Five, which are like, the elders or whatever, the leaders of this group of Parshendi. And I think it was him that like purchased Szeth and like arranged it at some point. He was somewhere in like the line of like getting Szeth to do this thing. I'm trying to remember exactly. Here we go. In late 1167, Clade decided to see if it would be possible to buy a slave in Kolina. Upon arriving, he claimed that a voice that spoke the rhythms led him to Szeth. That's right, yeah. Ulim was this Voidbringer who told Clade, hey, go buy this slave because we're going to kill Gavilar. So it's interesting that this guy was speaking to Gavilar in the early portions, which I didn't know. I didn't know they knew each other.
Yeah, I didn't know that either.
Yeah. So, he was part of the chain of command that ended up in the death of Gavilar. So it's cool to see him. But I suppose we can get to the cool part now. Well, almost.
It's all cool. I would say it's all cool.
Yeah, but like turning something into blood is just like cool.
Yeah.
The metal part, perhaps.
Yes.
But again, I'm gonna like put the brakes on slightly because I did want to talk to you about the whole like history lesson with sad old heartbroken Kabsal.
Yeah.
Why not teach some history while you're getting broken up with?
It's rough.
While you can.
Rough beats for our boy.
Yeah, he showed a new side. He showed a new side this week, and I don't know if I like it, Jimmy.
Is it genuine?
I think he is kind of hurt. I think he genuinely like really likes her. Yeah.
Yeah. I feel that as well.
Yeah. It's the classic like I'm really nice vibe until they get rejected and he gets all angry. You know what? I didn't like you anyway. Give me my jam back.
Big incel vibes, yeah.
Incel capsule. So what did you take from this, like with the whole history?
That once again, they simply don't know the history. And they've actually drawn some points that metaphorically seem correct, but in the literal interpretation is not correct. The Traquelin halls, to me, almost can represent them getting kicked out of it, can represent their prior planet. And them
agreed.
Coming to Roshar.
Yeah, and then she's asking about the Dawn Singers.
The Dawn Singers, and he says, "What about them?"
Classic incel capsule. What about the Dawn Singers? Because she's asking because like she realizes the Palanaeum is not. It's like a natural, quote unquote, natural formation.
Yes, and by the way, this kind of leans into what we've been talking about of a lot of this structure stuff being here before the humans arrived. But we also have questioned about who created these things and how did they get there.
Yeah, he chuckled like, that isn't the kind of thing the Dawn Singers did. They were healers, all right? Kindly spren sent by the Almighty to care for humans once we were forced out of the Tranquiline Halls, dummy. Come on.
Yeah, and she says kind of the opposite of Voidbringers. And he said, I suppose you could say that.
I think this is definitely the work of the Dawn Singers, to be honest, man. I'm pretty sure a lot of Roshar is with these like, well, there's two parts, right? So like there's the cities, with his little sand experiment that he did that are like glyphs. That I feel like there's some sort of honor/human component to. But like stuff like the Palanaeum, I feel like it could be Dawn Singers, like the Parshendi of past. Because they were, it's like we've got so many hints, so much evidence to suggest that they could like mold the earth with all their powers and stuff.
Yes.
And I could imagine them doing that. But I wonder why. Wonder why they did it.
Now that is a good question. I think it's likely what you're saying because it would fit with the idea, especially now. Remember, we're in the Way of Kings without any other context. We're thinking that the Parshendi are some lesser beings, right? Like they're not as advanced. They couldn't ever do these type of things. They're not intelligent enough. These are, it's the classic, like they're barbarians.
Yeah.
We must only we could ever do that.
Yeah.
And I think Sanderson's playing with that right here.
I would love to study the Palanaeum because it's like a reverse pyramid, right, going down into the earth. Why? It's always a pyramid. Hey,
Yeah, I know,
how'd
right?
they do it?
Yeah, and it's interesting because like in our world, a lot of people are like the pyramids were actually there's no way that they could have been built by humans and da 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 da. And it's like we think so poorly of humans of the past, like they would never be able to accomplish these things and have technology to do this. And when I say technology, I don't mean microprocessors. I mean like fulcrums and such. So, being able to figure some of this stuff out. And it's like we can't imagine them being capable of doing this, which is really not a good way of looking at humans of the past. And I think here it's like the same thing. They look at the Parshendi and are like, no way.
Yeah, it's like they're pulling the elevators up and down, dude. Like, what are you talking about?
Isn't that something right there that they built these amazing structures that these people are doing all this study in with the wrong context, and the people who of lineage that are responsible for this thing are the ones pulling them up and down. That's criminal.
Really sad. Yeah, it's really sad when you.
It ain't the first time it's happened in history.
No, no, not at all. Look, I'm going to read because they keep going. And then he goes, "We believe that the Voidbringers were real, Shallan, a scourge and a plague. 100 times they came upon mankind, first casting us from the Tranquiline Halls, then trying to destroy us here on Roshar. They weren't just spren that hid under rocks, then came out to steal someone's laundry. They were creatures of terrible destruction, power, forged in damnation, created from hate." So, using like our translations, damnation, as I understand it, is Braze, where like the fused chill and and where the heralds get tortured. So like from this definition, he's classifying the Voidbringers as the fused. But then when you read it like they cast us from the Tranquiline Halls, I don't think they did. I think humanity messed up as we understand it and came. So there's like a bit of like they're just passing on the blame,
Yes, and then also isn't there the whole angle of us being the void? I shouldn't say us; we're not in the story, but like you know what I'm saying. The humans are the Voidbringers themselves.
I think the more we talk about it, the more I'm like, I don't think it's a 1-to-1 answer. I think like we're the Voidbringers in the sense, I mean, humans are the Voidbringers in the sense like they came to Roshar and messed it up a little bit. I mean, a bit. But the other aspect of the Voidbringers who like come from damnation and attack, I think that's still the fused. So I think like it's a bit of a half-half scenario. I don't think...
and maybe it's not actually so black and white.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the thing. He says everything has its opposite. Shallan, the Almighty, is a force of good to balance his goodness. The Cosmere needed Voidbringers as his opposite. But by rhythm of war, we see that these two opposite sides, polar opposites, this very black and white view is now producing people who are stuck in the middle, right? Venli and Renarin and these other people who kind of just want to go off and do this own thing that are a bit gray. So I think what Sanderson is doing here is actually setting up the goalposts on each side of the field. And now as he goes through the future books, he's carving out the middle and what something looks like that's reconciled between those two sides.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, you're right. And we see it with all the rhythms, like you need odiums and cultivations and honor to like get the tone of Roshar or whatever it is. So it's not as black and white as it's being presented here.
Yeah, people really want you to pick a side. the people very much like that tribal approach. I think what Sanderson's tackling here, though, is like dogmatic beliefs of any kind. And I think it's pretty interesting, especially whenever you tie it in so deeply to the history of this world that then in a few hundreds or thousands of pages later, we get flipped totally on its head. It's just, it's a wild thing to try to execute.
I would suck at this. Like I love to write and to hold on to these secrets for so long. I wouldn't be able to hold it in.
Yeah. And while tackling like a pretty important theme that is very relevant to today.
I feel like reading this, having read more Cosmere, I would have had a chance to figure it out, because you get a sense that the religions are based on past actual Cosmere wide events. Mm-hmm. So I feel like I'd already be looking for like a parallel to for Damnation and Tranquiline Halls. Like, what are they really? Probably a planet,
Yeah,
probably another planet. So I miss the days of like just being totally lost. But there is
Roshar,
mate, beautiful. Yeah, I miss the days of being lost in Roshar, and I'm trying to capture it, guys. But I still feel lost, just in a different way. Like, I'm lost, but I got Google Maps. I got a bit of help, but there's still some uncharted roads. But the roads, I'm trying to take this analogy all the way. You get my point.
Well, that's literally what I was about to say, though, is like, there's still time, Christian. There's still a lot of things unsolved, and we're about to get one of the biggest pieces of the puzzle. So, like,
true.
It's not over yet.
True. Yeah, look, I'm wondering the last bit about this that I have a question for. Like, he's like, I told you the basics, Shallan. Stop asking me questions. He goes, we fought them off 99 times. And I'm just like, how'd they get that number? How'd they get 99 battles? What's that about? Or is that just some like religious thing? I don't know.
It could just be a religious thing, but I really don't know. It's a good question.
Why not 100? What happened before the 100th battle? Like, sounds pretty hype. Who pulled out? I don't know. That's the only last question I had there before we get to the awesome moment of all of these cryptic friends showing up. Did you pick up on this line where Kabsal's like, at least draw a picture of us together? And she's asking for a mirror, and it says she rarely did sketches of herself. They felt strange to draw.
Yeah, why is that?
Yeah. Right?
I mean, I guess that's not totally out of the question. Like, there's a lot of photographers that don't like having their picture taken, or artists that don't like drawing themselves. So maybe it's just that. Maybe it's as simple as something that human.
Yeah, because it's but Jimmy, it sounds like you're taking it literally. No, we don't do that here.
We don't do that around these parts.
No.
Damn it.
There is that angle, right? The artist being like not used to being the subject, classic, right? But in the same way that she's seeing things that aren't in this plane of reality when she's drawing and seeing Cryptic Spren, Shallan's hiding a lot about her past.
Yeah.
Is there something that could be revealed in the drawings of herself about her past somehow? Would she see her old Spren or something?
She's protecting herself from real.
Yeah.
I mean, that's without a doubt in play. It could be a thing.
Yeah, like even just purely as a character moment, like to see yourself so clearly would be hard for someone like Shallan, even if it's just in a portrait. So definitely. I just thought that was like a telling line, whether it's a magic thing or just a mental health thing. It's cool. But yes, firstly, we get one guy. So it's just like she draws Kabsal, and then it says a figure that wasn't really there, a figure with a sharp angular symbol hovering above its collar instead of a head. So it's just one cryptic, and then the next one's 2, and then the next one's 5. So she's like drawing a crowd.
Yeah, does that and literally drawing a crowd.
Yeah.
So her drawing is why they're coming, right? Like the more she draws, the more that will come.
I wonder, right? Because like, when you're in Shadesmar, people show up as little candle flames. I'm wondering like what these cryptics are seeing. Are they just seeing like a candle flame, or are they in the room seeing it as it is?
I'm not sure of that answer.
Yeah. Because like if they're in the room, they're like, whoa, she's drawing us. Come check it out.
Well, I think maybe just her act of doing that. It's kind of like whenever Kaladin's doing the kata, like maybe he's attracting more Spren that way. And for her, I feel like that drawing is her thing.
Well, to attract a cryptic, it's like lying. Lying is what gets them interested. So what's she
Okay.
lying about that's like drawing a crowd?
Oh.
A lot. I mean, a lot. Just in general. Like she's lying to Kabsal, she's lying to Yasna,
Yeah,
she's
she
lying
she
to
she be
herself.
steady lying. Yeah, there's no doubt about it.
But regardless, she's drawing some. I mean, these puns write themselves, but she's drawing some attention here. And okay, so the next one: two figures stood on the landing above, wearing two straight robes like cloth made from metal. They leaned down, watching her go. And then five symbol-headed figures in black, two stiff robes and cloaks. Each had a different symbol, twisting and unfamiliar to her, hanging above a necklace torso. The creatures wove through the crowd, unseen, like predators focused on Shallan. So they are weaving through people. So they must be kind of in the physical realm.
Yeah, I think they are at this point.
Yeah. So you had questions about like the Shadesmar part when she drops into it.
Yeah, like what's like a glass goblet filled with diamond spheres.
Yeah.
What's significant about glass goblet filled with diamond spheres?
I mean, nothing really. So it's just we're in Yasna's room, right? She finds this. She's like, I'm going to soulcast. Well, firstly, she goes to get her shard blade, as she tends to do. 10 heartbeats away. So good. But then she's like, no, I'll use the soulcaster. But as she's about to do it, they say, what are you? So that is the Crpytics Brent, or potentially Patton. Maybe it's him. I'm guessing it's Patton, if he's got a speaking role.
I hope it's Pattern.
I'm assuming so.
That opens up a whole other can of worms if it's not.
Yeah, if it's not. Well, it's Patton and the gang. Like his 4 friends. And she goes, what am I? I'm terrified. And they go, this is true. Which is like a very like Crpytics Brent kind of like devoid of, I don't know, just weird human interactions.
And then the bedroom transforms. Like,
yeah.
What a absolute like rug pull and like a power fight here.
Right? It's a massive rug pull. So I suppose what's significant about the goblet full of spheres is that Shallan's able to use the spheres to power her soul cast.
And it does make us speculate that, okay, you're able to do this. And then like we have this little scene in Shadesmar. So what could someone do that is very powerful with a ton of Stormlight in Shadesmar?
Yeah. I mean,
what can they accomplish there?
Yeah. Soulcast, baby. So yeah, so she gets transported to Shadesmar, which is kind of what you do when you soulcast. And it says, which this made me so happy. She found herself in a place with a black sky and a strange small white sun that hung on the horizon. Too far away. Sun's approaching the horizon, guys.
Man, we've been talking about that sun for quite a while, haven't we?
I'm telling you. And then you read and you look at the chapters, and I'm sure for some people it clicks. Like that's what's in her chapter icon, surely.
Mm-hmm.
So she's like, sees all the flames, which are like people, all the candles floating, which is how people are represented in Shadesmar. I guess you have some sort of a soul or something.
Well, and remember, we've had a lot of flame imagery in these epigraphs that are old text trying to explain things, or in people's death rattles. So I bet if you go back and look at it, some of these flames could be attributed to Shadesmar.
I never thought of that before.
We have seen flames multiple times in epigraphs in this book. And this is providing us new context of a way to think about flames when we see this word.
Yeah, that's a great point. I've never thought to do that, actually, to impart that definition of it on the death rattles. We should do that. Well, we should keep that in mind.
Definitely.
So she falls in the sea of beads, as you do when you go to Shadesmar, just like the ultimate ball pit. The ultimate fantasy ball pit.
Bro, when I went to, I gotta tell the story real quick. When I went to an amusement park, it was called Idlewild Park in Pennsylvania. When I was a kid, there was a huge ball pit, the most epic ball pit. It was amazing. Really? And the one day I went there, last time I was there was a snake in the ball pit.
Oh my God.
Bro, I was losing my mind. I was like 4 or 5, and I was like, "Get me out of here!" Like I was freaking out. I know as an Australian that doesn't impress you because like you live with snakes and spiders.
I mean, they come with every ball pit here. It's like it's part of it. You know,
terrifying.
Just crocs and spiders and
like the shoes.
Yeah, it's just filled with crocs lost.
Just
4-year-olds everywhere.
All right, back.
man.
Sorry, I had to divert there.
No, man. Good. We got. I just remember like going to IKEA as a kid and just being dropped off in the ball pit and just wondering if my parents would ever return.
Oh my God, that's terrible.
Yeah. Just go to the ball pit, Christian. We'll be back. Luckily, they picked me up, guys. I'm all right.
They had some Swedish meatballs, bought an end table, and they're like, "All right, I guess we can take them back."
Guess we got to pick this kid up out of Shadesmar. Little did I know I was in Shadesmar that whole time.
Wow.
I'm glad I didn't hear those any voices in that ball pit. That would have been slightly worrying. Isn't undulating the word that Murphy hates?
Yes, our good friend Murphy Napier absolutely hates the word undulating, and he puts it in every single book.
They surged around her, moving in an undulating swell. I think swell makes that worse too. An undulating swell. Ooh. Okay, so then it says, "You want me to change?" A warm voice said in her mind, distinct and different from the cold whisper she had heard earlier. It was deep and hollow and conveyed a sense of great age. It seemed to come from her hand, and she realized she was grasping something there, one of the beads. So this is the goblet talking to her, which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
So she had the intent of like soulcasting earlier, which is, I guess, what this bead / goblet is picking up on. Like, you want me to change? And it says, "I've been as I am for a great long time," the warm voice said. "I sleep so much, I will change. Give me what you have," which is like the Stormlight. And then it goes, "I don't know what you mean. Please help me. I will change." And then she like transforms into blood of all things. Now I'm not going to pull this up because there's a whole, like, of course with Sanderson there's a whole system, like you can change this into that and that into this, and if you're this order of radiant you can do that. Because I was thinking, why blood? Is it just because Shallan's got dark thoughts? More likely.
Well, remember her memory where someone's laying on the floor in blood?
Yeah, there is that. So there's two ways you could take it. Like, is it her mindset and her memories making it go to blood, like all these thoughts she's repressing? Or is it like, when you're a light weaver of this order, like you change glass into blood or something like that?
Yeah.
Definitely the coolest choice for a chapter.
I wonder if that'll make sense later on. You know what I mean? Like, we'll get a scene and we're like, there it is.
Oh, there's definitely a Cosmere expert listening right now being like, it's definitely this reason. But
I hear the glasses sliding up the bridge of the nose.
Yeah, there it goes. It's a slow push. They're like, actually.
Reese's on that, actually.
Yeah, yeah. With a hard H. But if you're doing a chapter like this, like a horror chapter, it's got to change to blood. Come on. It's the coolest, most metal outcome.
It's super cool.
And it's like, it like edging towards the door, and she's like, "Oh, what do I do? Yasna's coming," and she like cuts herself to cover it up. And it's cool that she comes to the conclusion of course she would, that she didn't actually use the soulcaster, which leaves the reader like racking their brain for like what is the
significance of the soulcaster has literally been the driving force behind a lot of this stuff, right? Behind her motivations, behind Yasna seeming so epic, and the magic that we've been experiencing, all the crazy things. And now we're seeing, just like the history, things are not as it appears. And then with that means that the soulcaster in itself is an item that is a lie, which is exactly what attracts these Spren. And Shallan is also lying, and this entire chapter ends with her lying.
Yeah. Like, if you're a Crpytics Spren, Shallan is like gold. You've struck gold, mate.
Yes.
You found the trifecta: lying to people, lying to herself, lying to everybody. And the thing is, right, with Kaladin, there's like this sense that he's special. There's like a power creep. There's like moments that he shouldn't survive. There's visions. He's like crazy with a spear. You don't see this coming. At least I didn't with Shallan.
No, I
like the whole magical thing. It's
no.
crazy.
At this point, I'm in the story. I remember being like, "What in the world is going on?" And just being so sold. Like I said, this is the moment. This is the moment for me.
Yeah. Oh my god. Like, and we don't. I think there's one more Shadesmar scene in this book, and that's it. And then he starts off Words of Radiance with Yasna going into Shadesmar in the freaking prologue, and you're just like, baby, let's go. This is
we are in.
Yeah, we are in the ball pit. Okay. That's our next animated background. Me and you just floating in Shadesmar.
In a ball pit.
With a snake, with a sky eel going
with
around.
An IKEA sign in the background. It's going to be incredible.
My parents just off in the distance,
Yes.
slowly fading away.
Debating, abandoning you.
Dude, that's the thing. When your parents drop you off as a kid, there's just like, you're like so convinced there's a chance they'll never come back.
Yeah, you're just like subconsciously aware of how annoying and such a burden you are on your parents that you're like, yeah, this makes sense. Like if they were smart, they'd leave me.
Yeah, you know what? We've been building to this moment when they finally
we can make another one.
Yeah. Jeez, Jimmy, thanks for that image. That's what I want.
Anytime.
I guess we finally go to one of my favorite chapters, Child of Tanavast.
Child of Tanavast. Chapter 46 of the Way Kings. The epigraph reads, though I was due for dinner in Vaden City, I don't know how you say it, that night, I insisted upon visiting Kolinar to speak with Tivbet. I'm sorry. The tariffs through Irathiru were growing quite unreasonable. By then, the so-called Radiance had already begun to show their true nature. Following the firing of the original Palanium, only one page of the Turksum's autobiography remained, and this is the only line that is of any use to me. I apologize for, dyslexia and all that good stuff. So, yeah, dude. Yeah.
The so-called Radiance. People are so salty, man. Just accept it. Like, we have Radiance.
It's almost like people are flawed.
Yeah. So-called Radiance.
Would you say with great power comes great responsibility, Christian?
You know what? I might. And it's Uncle Christian to you. The Uncle Ben, the parallels. Come on, mate. Come on, follow me.
I love it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Time for a Spider-Man rewatch. The originals. So good.
It really is. It's also time for me to summarize this chapter.
Let's do it.
Yeah, I feel like if I don't summarize this one, people are going to be like, what are you talking about? Because it's a bit of a trip, honestly. Kaladin rides the high storm as he sweeps across Roshar. In the dream, Kaladin views many places and people, a large portion of which he had never seen or heard of before. Blowing southwest, then westward, Kaladin sees flashes of light, almost appearing to be physical things he could touch. Approaching them, he sees that they came from a building amidst a city built of a triangular pattern. He bursts in there and sees a man with large shin eyes, a shard blade wearing white. This is Szeth, obviously. Just after he has committed an assassination. It feels to Kaladin as though the assassin could see him. Then traveling on near the Western Ocean, Kaladin separates from the storm after hearing a booming voice that shakes the storm wall. This voice calls Kaladin a child of Tanavast and of honor, and it warns him that odium comes. Kaladin takes this opportunity to ask him why there is so much war, and the voice responds, odium reigns. Kaladin then awakes inside of his barracks. He thinks he's being attacked by all these dark figures. It's actually Bridge 4, and this is where Rock ends up revealing that Sigzil is a world singer, and then there's been a Parshman that has joined their crew, and they're just going to call him Shen. And Kaladin walks around the camp. He asks Syl about odium, and she hisses and zips off without a word. Kaladin sees an officer beating a prostitute in the street and starts to intervene, but he sees a high-ranking officer in blue, which happens to be Adolin Colin, come onto the scene. The officer backs down, and Adolin offers to escort the lady out of the camp. He flips an emerald chip at Kaladin and tells him to pass along a message for him. Kaladin takes the chip, but in fact does not complete the job and does not pass on the message. What a brat.
Oh, Bridge Boy.
Oh, Bridge Boy. Hey, over here.
Flipping a coin.
I got a message for you.
I love that exchange, man. It's bloody hilarious. Bridge Boy.
Yeah, especially knowing who they are and where they end up. It's pretty funny.
I love that. Like your 50s.
Yeah,
50s
mobster.
presenter. Yeah.
Wise guy.
Hey, Bridge Boy. Oh, that's great. Like, I love that. And like Don Dalinar.
Don Dalinar.
The family business. Oh, dude. This is going to be our longest episode. I'm calling it right now. This chapter, like, there's so much in it. We firstly have the crazy Kaladin thing. Then we have, bit of Sigil stuff, bit of bonding with the boys, let's go to the barbershop. And then we get the Adolin crossover, the Odium stuff with Syl. Oh man, it's an absolute banger. And I'm glad it starts off with the dream because that's what I want to talk about most. This is like, one of the biggest mysteries in the Stormlight Archive is why does the Stormfather only refer to Kaladin as the child or son of Tanavast? And this is the first instance of it. Quick refresher, if you're not familiar, Tanavast was the guy who held the Shard of Honor, the actual human being. He calls other people Child of Honor, but not Child of Tanavast. Hence my major sus feelings about Kaladin and his family. Or just
but everyone's told us that Sanderson doesn't like secret lineages and stuff. But could he be throwing us off the track? I mean,
it doesn't have to be a lineage thing,
Yeah, it doesn't have to be. You're right.
It's a Kaladin thing, potentially.
Yeah, he's just the reincarnation of Tanavast, maybe?
I don't know. Like, I talked about this with Jake. I'm like, is there some, like, honor leaderboard? Like, who's the most honorable guy? And he's like, you know what? Number one, you're the Child of Tanavast. But it better not be that. That sucks. Jake said something really good to me about theories, like how he judges theories. And he's like, I'm more inclined to accept it if it enhances the story.
Yeah.
Which is, like, a marker I need to remind myself of.
It's definitely important. I say this all the time in the Song of Ice and Fire community. There are just simply things that people think are going to be answered that have no reason to be answered. Like, for instance, but Corrin Halfhand being Arthur Dane.
Right.
We can just think that. It doesn't actually have to be answered. And the more nebulous it is, actually, the more fun it is to theorize about these things. But yeah, I mean, I would agree with Jake in that sentiment.
Yeah. I suppose we should quickly cover the epigraph, which I just got like, okay, Earthru was a thing, they could teleport, and the Radiants were kind of running it.
Like, yeah, it sounds like very human issues going on, and it's like this thing that's pretty amazing has become kind of mundane, and to me, this is power corrupting humans, possibly. Yeah.
And the only other thing is like the firing of the original Palanaeum, so like it's kind of like the Library of Alexandria burned down for some reason. So that's cool. But okay, so the dream, and shout out to the following Nohadon podcast. These guys are another Stormlight podcast, and years ago, I think it's a mixture of new readers and someone who's read it. But I believe it was one of the people reading it for the first time. They've got a video where they map out Kaladin's dream as a first-time reader, which was so cool to see someone go to that length on their first time through, because like I certainly did not do that.
They were in.
It's very cool, and I suppose we could do something similar, because whilst that is a cool video, there are some locations here that I'm curious to like pull up a map of Roshar and like get the exact location for. Like some like the people living in like stalactites or whatever that was. I'm like, where is that? That seems very cool. So like it seems like he's like the Stormfather's picked him up, put him on his shoulders, like, Kaladin, we're going for a ride. We're going around the whole continent. And they do. And what's curious is like it's a dream, but I'm sure the storm doesn't travel this quickly. Like it was very quick. Like he's zooming.
Well, time probably passes differently, I guess, when you're doing this.
Yeah, right? Sure. Okay, that's a good enough explanation. I'll take that.
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to pull up a map. I might need your help here.
Oh, boy.
Just to like, if you like read the passage and I'm like, and I've got the map pulled up, because I worry if I'm changing too much, I'll lose where I'm at. I've got searching Roshar on my laptop is a bad move. You know how many files come up? It is.
Yeah, I can imagine. You have a plethora of evidence.
It is an absolute disgrace. Okay, I've got my big map of Roshar ready to go. All right, so he starts. Does he start at the Shattered Plains?
I believe so. I'm actually trying to find it right now.
Okay, let me see. All right, so he starts dreaming. So he approaches a dark continent and saw it upward. So he starts on the sea. So he leaves the sea behind. The vastness of the continent spread before him, seeming endless. Okay, he roared past the shattered plains. They looked as if something very large had hit them at the center, sending rippling breaks outward. They too were larger than he'd expected. No wonder nobody had been able to find their way through the chasms. There was a large plateau at the center, but with the darkness and the distance, he could not see much. There were lights, though. Someone lived there. So that's like the Parshendi hub that he's seeing there.
Are these impact craters from like...
something? See, this is the big question, dude. Like, what caused the shattered plains? And I know for a fact this is not answered yet.
Yeah, it's almost, it makes me wonder, like, did the Parshendi come here from space or something? You know, like landing in... I don't know.
Because he says, despite that, he could see a symmetry to the shattered plains from high above. The plains resembled a work of art. Just like the cities that Incel Capsule showed us that created glyphs and stuff and like symmetry. But like the impact crater thing, it's like, yeah, what caused that? Was there like a giant battle that left this awesome like
or is it as simple as like a meteor hit it?
No way.
No way. Okay.
No, there's symmetry, which suggests it's like some magical
by design. Okay.
Yeah, dude, I'm imagining this. I can't, too many One Piece tangents, but there's like there's a One Piece battle with like the sky cracking. It's reminding me of. Maybe it was like a battle between shards. Maybe it was like Honor versus Odium, and then like there was an explosion and it shattered the ground below, creating this epic.
Yeah.
Something like that. Anyway, so he's in the Shattered Plains. Do you have any theories before I move on for this?
I really don't actually on this one.
Yeah.
It feels like this might be like planet wide thing.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like it almost feels like maybe the powers that be like hitting planets with something and like using it as a signifier or like a sign, if you will, like an interstellar sign.
Well,
like go left at the planet with this on it.
Oh, that's an interesting take. That's cool. Because, I like that. When I'm looking at the map now, dude, I don't know if you've got a map pulled up, but like
I do not.
Okay, but basically in the exact same spot on the western side of Roshar, right at the edge, is Shinovar, which I would say is like as far opposite of the Shattered Plains as you could get in its opposite location. Is there something to that where it's like, here's the human hub, you stay on this side of the continent, and here's like the listener hub? That could be something, maybe.
I like that.
Yeah. They're directly opposite each other. I've never thought about that before.
That is a little odd.
Yeah, like, because maybe like it's like, yeah, you can come to our planet, just like you stay on that side. You can have your cows and your horses or whatever you want, and your dirt on that side. Maybe
send your dirt.
Get your dirt out of here, dude. So he goes to Kolinar. Pretty cool. Then he goes southward, away from anything he knew. He crested majestic mountains, densely populated at their tips with villages clustered near vents that emitted steam or lava, the Horn Eater Peaks, which checks out, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
Which is cool. I'm very curious about those bloody peaks, man. Because Rock has a few sus lines a bit later. Like him and Sigzil, like talking about how far they've traveled and stuff. I'm like, how do you guys know all this? Like Rock knows a lot. Don't you get that sense that Rock is really clued in?
Oh, without a doubt.
Yeah.
Especially to like the land, right? Like the actual geography and the history, like why things are the way they are even, and like what to believe or not. But it is interesting. He doesn't believe in the Voidbringers.
Does he? Yeah, he says something like that, right? He's
last time we saw Rock, remember he was like, all that air is making your brain sick or whatever. Yeah. He's like, there are no such thing as Voidbringers.
Yeah. Yeah, but they seem to generally have a good understanding of Roshar, like how we can see Spren and stuff. That seems like, it seemed like a quirk at first.
Nature.
Yeah, they're in tune. They understand. Maybe they got some good mushrooms up in the Hornita Peaks. But I don't know exactly if that's definitely the Hornita Peaks, but I'm not really curious about that. It's like, okay, maybe yes, maybe not. Probably yes. There was like the one place that had me very curious. Where was it? So he sees a few wars, a few battles going on. Yeah, this one. He took a path to the southwest, blowing towards a city built in long. Is it troughs? I think I'm saying that right. In the ground that looked like a giant claw marks had ripped across the landscape. He was over it in a flash. I'm wondering if is that like the rift where Dalinar went, where it's like huge cuts into the earth, and people are living in that depression there.
Maybe.
Yeah, I feel like it might be hard to pinpoint some of this now that I'm looking at the map. It's just like there's just so many locations. What strikes me here is like we never really get a good sense of this in the whole series.
That's the thing. I was lost. Like for me, I mean, the questions I was pulling out were one. I went crazy and I was like, "Are all these places on Roshar?"
Yeah, no, they definitely are.
Yeah, they definitely are. And then the other thing is, I'm like, okay, the triangle area, and then he sees Szeth. Was that at the same time, or was that the next step in the journey? And like, was Szeth in the triangle place at that time?
I think so. Like, I think this is like tracking the storm, the storm, like as it crosses Roshar.
Yeah,
and I believe like it places Szeth around the I guess you'd call I don't know what you could call these, if they're countries or areas or whatever, but it looks like he's in Eerie, which passes by Babathanum, which is the place that Zigzal talks about later in the chapter, which is like almost teasing you to try and figure out this dream, because it's like because he talks about it and he talks about the veins of the people, which Kaladin does see. Remember how he sees like blue veins under their skin, and Zigzal's like, oh, I was transfixed by those veins. So you're there, and then you go a bit past that, which is Eerie, which is then Szeth killing someone. And then you get that curious moment where like Szeth looks at him or something, or seems to see him. And so the Stormfather's taking him on this little, Disney ride around Roshar. Why did he lead him specifically to Szeth?
And Szeth maybe being able to see him? Like, that means that Kaladin maybe was really there. Like this is where I get really confused on whether it's like a timeline interaction or if it's the spiritual realm and the physical realm meshing. I'm not sure.
It seems like Stormfather's clearly clued into like the assassination of Gavilar at the very least, and he knows it's Szeth. But why would he choose to lead Kaladin straight to him? Because it's like he's going over the landscape. It's all these beautiful vistas, and he sees some people and stuff. But then he like goes into the building Szeth is in to like check in on exactly what he's doing, and they have this like little moment. I don't know. It feels kind of prophetic.
Maybe it's less about Szeth and more about Taravangian and his plans.
Ooh, okay. Yeah, maybe.
It's a little abstract, though.
It is a little bit. Like, thematically, it works for us because we're like, oh, that's the guy. That's the guy.
But I don't know. Kaladin would never be able to put that together through that. No. So, I don't know. And it obviously, it's significant that Kaladin and Szeth are going to be buddy cops in book 5.
I'm just curious there is that, like there's a major like frenemies kind of thing with them too.
Yeah,
but it's just weird that the Stormfathers would do that. There's got to be a reason. There's no way that's just for the reader to make that connection. There's got to be a reason that he took him so low or whatever.
Yeah, and I guess you could say that it's setting up their battle.
Yeah, like all thematically it all makes sense. I'm just like, why does the Stormfather have
and like at this moment, I mean, there's a lot of things I could ask about the Stormfather. Why now?
Yeah. Why now? Yeah, is it just because he's bonding Syl? He's like, oh yeah, this guy's cool. Radiants are back.
Is the Stormfather a recording?
Here we
One
go.
of those theories that are out there, right? That this is all pre-recorded.
Oh man, there's something cool about that.
I would say that this is actually an argument that it's not.
I would say that it's because it's very real time and they have a conversation. The
Yeah.
last thing before their conversation that I found that I did not remember that I find kind of curious, it says something drew his attention, strange flashes of light. He blew towards them at the forefront of the storm. What were those lights? They came in bursts, forming the strangest patterns, almost like physical things that he could reach out and touch. Spherical bubbles of light that vibrated with spikes. Oh, and here's my favorite word again, troughs. I think I'm saying it right. Probably not. But like, I figured if it's lightning, he would say, "I saw lightning." So it's not lightning. What is it?
Well, maybe he's confused.
Just like in the midst of the storm, seeing flashes and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely could be something else, but like, I wonder if it's just such a disorienting experience that he doesn't know what to call it.
Yeah, but spherical bubbles of light that vibrated. I don't know. That feels very
vibrations. I mean, there's
like the very easy answer is it's a storm. So there's like light. The second answer is it's like a spren of some kind. The third one, which is maybe a bit more fun, is like other magical stuff going on, like as how the Stormfather sees magic. Is it like Zeth doing some cool magic stuff, or is it like the Stormfather seeing some sort of surge binding? I don't know. It just felt like that's a big question mark. I don't know what he's seeing there, and I don't know.
Yeah, I have no idea.
Yeah, but I suppose we can get to the chat that they have, and I feel like that's all you, Jimmy.
Oh, you think?
I think you can do. I haven't heard your Stormfather voice. Before.
Child of Tanavast, child of honor, child of one, long since departed. A sudden voice shook Kaladin. He floundered in the air. The oath pact was shattered. I started turning him into like Sean Connery there at the end.
I saw that. Yeah.
The booming sound made the storm wall itself vibrate. Kaladin hit the ground, separating from the storm. He skidded to a stop, feet throwing up sprays of water. Storm winds crashed into him, but he was enough a part of them that they neither tossed nor shook him. Men ride the storm no longer. The voice was thunder crashing in the air. The oath pact is broken, child of honor. I don't understand, Kaladin screamed into the tempest. A face formed before him, the face he had seen before, the aged face as wide as the sky, its eyes full of stars. Odium comes, most dangerous of all the 16. You will now go. Something blew against him. Wait, Kaladin said. Why is there so much war? Must we always fight? He wasn't sure why he asked. The question simply came out. The storm rumbled like a thoughtful aged father. The face vanished, shattering into droplets of water. More softly, the voice answered. Odium reigns.
Oh my god. Oh, just as I envisioned it. As I read it, I don't understand.
I don't understand, mister.
Why is there a war? Why
am I sad all the time?
Oh my god. Oh, Kaladin.
That might have been my best performance.
I think that was brilliant. I really want to
I could hear people turning off the podcast as I did it. I could hear.
The slow grasp at the volume knob in their car, just turning it down.
Yeah, like, we'll just skip the 30-second button here. I'm tired of this guy.
Oh, this is what it's all about, man.
I can't wait to listen to that back.
I want to like add reverb. I want to add some like thunder effects.
Oh my god.
The old fact.
Odium comes.
I don't understand. That's my favorite part.
This is interesting though, because he says he wasn't sure why he asked. The question simply came out. I thought that was interesting. And the storm rumbled like a thoughtful aged father. Stormfather, the face vanished, shattering into droplets of water. Shattering, very significant word.
True. Yeah, very true. It's like he's got a sense of drama. He's got a dramatic flair. He's like, you know what, I'm going to shatter into.
He's a theater kid. There's no doubt.
He's like, I bet I could like leave as droplets. That'll send him really.
Yeah, that's gonna be so sick.
Yeah. I mean, I've tried rain clouds in the past, but I think droplets are it. Yeah. Look, Child of Tanavast. He leads with that. Child of the one long since departed. I mean, that's very clear. Weird that he then goes to the oath pact was shattered. Like, talk about going from 0 to 100 or
Real
0
quick.
to 60, as you guys say. What's that about? Why would he? Why that? Recording? Like,
Well, maybe that's just the day where everything started to break apart, the shattering, if you will, of all of this. Like maybe that's just the inciting incident where he had to start paying attention. But again, it's like, why now?
yeah, because he said, men ride the storm no longer. The oath pact is broken, Child of Honor. Odium comes, most dangerous of all the 16. You will go now. Because what's curious is, remember how last time Honor spoke to Dalinar and we like took out the Dalinar bits and it's like clear he's not talking to Dalinar? Even if we do that here, he still says you will go now. And then he seems to respond to his question when he says Odium reigns at the end, seemingly. But the you will go now part feels like he's talking to Kaladin and he sees him. I mean, surely this is just because he's bonded with Syl and it's like clear that he might be becoming a Radiant again. But we know the Stormfathers interacted with a few people. Definitely Dalinar, now Kaladin, and then we like later get a flashback. He did it with Eshonai. He lets Eshonai ride the storm as she dies. It's interesting to think about why he picks people, and even more interesting to think about why he calls him the Child of Tanavast. I have, as I've said a few times, I've got a video in the works slowly about this whole thing. Why? Just why? Why does this happen? Why does he call him this? And I'm just going to pull up, I'm going to try to find my notes on this because it's mentioned once in every book. He calls Kaladin this. Only once. And I don't exactly know why. Okay, so it says, oh no, wrong notes. Fill in the dead air, Jimmy. I've got to find this thing.
You can check us out on X. No, I really don't have anything other than the fact that it's mentioned every single book. This is clearly signposting that this title means something. And when you're first reading through it, you've read your standard fantasy fare. Everyone has honorifics. Everyone has alternate titles. And those are some of the coolest things in our series that we love. And I think Sanderson is saying, well, let's do an honorific. Let's do an alternate title, but let's put this big fat mystery behind it. And now leads us down this big rabbit hole. And this is a very Sanderson thing to do something that is standard fare in fantasy and then take it a step further and tie it into the lore mysteries and the world building. And the reason why I feel comfortable saying this is because this is a guy who is taking the back blurb of the book and maybe possibly writing it from an in-world character perspective that's not obvious, and then playing with the chapter title emblems, again, standard fare for fantasy, and it leading to something a lot more, the epigraphs being death rattles. So the Child of Tanavast is a cool name, but I think it clearly signifies something more as well.
I agree, and I found my notes, mate. I found them. All right, so because part of me is like, "Ooh, save it for the video, Christian. Keep them wanting more." But look, I'll say this. I looked at the chapter titles of each time he's called this, and maybe we can do something with this. All right. So first one is in the Way of Kings, Child of Tanavast. This very chapter. Then he calls him it in Words of Radiance. It's called Striding the Storm. In Oathbringer, it's called Demands of the Storm, and in Rhythm of War, it's called Uniting. Ooh, our favorite word. Unite them. Child of Tanavast, Striding the Storm, Demands of the Storm, uniting. What's he like? Is he uniting him with something? Is the storm demanding? Is like the Stormfather trying to do something? Is he like, hey, look, my boy died, Tanavast died. I need a new boy. It's gonna be Kaladin. Maybe he's
and is the Stormfather doing the right things? Like,
yeah,
Did he
I
have a
don't know.
role in the Oath Pact? You know, like I always wonder about the, like, because all this had to be set up at one point, like this rule of them being tortured, and then the Stormfather coming here and letting people ride. Like, how did this all begin, and why was the Storm, like, who was the Stormfather before all this?
Well, like the Stormfather was just like a big old spren. And then, like, when Tanavast died, you know, you can become a cognitive shadow.
Mm-hmm.
And he, like, attached himself to the Stormfather. And now they're, like, a weird convergence of, like, Spren and, like, memory of Tanavast.
Okay.
So that's the deal. So there's a bit of him left in the Stormfather to some degree. And the Stormfather is just, like, an awakened Spren who's got...
And
like,
maybe these conversations we're saying that we think are conversations are actually something that Tanavast had a conversation with somebody else in the past. Like it's his memory of conversations that are being repeated that he thinks are significant.
Ooh, that could be cool. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because, like, oh man, there's so many curiosities about this thing, and I will save some for the video. But, like, people have asked, literally the question has been asked to Sanderson: is there significance about the Son of Tanavast thing that it's only Kaladin? And he said, yeah, boy, there is.
I knew it.
I knew it. And then someone asked if he met Tien, would he also call him the Son of Tanavast? And then Sanderson said something along the lines of, like, "Ooh, I know what you're getting at here, Raphael." So
we're gonna put a Raphael on that one.
yeah. So I don't know, because that, like, there's the whole family. That's the family question. That's the whole, like, is Lyra and Tanavast thing, which I don't really think is the case. Let's just say it's one of those things. It's one of the biggest mysteries in the series, and I think the payoff could be decades away.
Oh, don't tell me that.
I don't know if it's a book 5 payoff thing.
I think it's book 5.
I like your optimism, mate.
It's gotta be. We gotta drive the hype. We gotta drive traffic to the podcast, brother.
Okay, book 5, guys. Son of
Tanavast. Promise this
coming.
time.
It's coming.
When's a winner? Confirmed.
Yeah, but look, my mapping out experience, slight fail, but hopefully I've got your mind going. Give us your Son of Tanavast theories. That's my call out to the Spotify and YouTube audience. Tell me what you think it is. I want more voices on this. I want everyone.
And don't say it's nothing, because I mean, I think we're almost 99% sure it's not nothing. Something.
It's something. Even if it's like the tiniest thing, give me your thoughts, and I want to know. All right, the rest of the chapter. Did you notice the cheeky little Stormlight vape of Kaladin? Did you notice that?
He was vaping?
Like he I mean, that's essentially what using Stormlight is, right? Just like a cheeky vape.
Yeah, it's hipster vaping.
Yeah. All the ratings just vaping. It's like, what a disgrace. But he's like, oh man, I got a headache. I don't feel great. And then he's like, he took a deep breath and threw back his shoulders, trying to force the fatigue away. The sphere in the corner flickered. Then its light faded away, leaving them in the darkness. And then everyone's like, oh man, these dun spheres from Gaz, he's so dodgy. And then, like, the next bit of Kaladin is like, oh, his head felt great. So
what, like, a nice little piece. Just a little...
Yeah, very, very sweet little moment. I like that.
Tweak. I love it.
But that's all. I think that's where all the magical stuff ends. And now we get into the, the boys hanging out.
Yeah, the boys and some hints towards the Parshendi as well.
Yes.
I think we see a little bit of that.
Yeah. What did you... I've been talking too much, man. I need...
no, not at all. I knew this was going to be a you-heavy episode, because at the end of the day, there's just a lot of the stuff that I'm not privy to, and you breaking it down is super helpful, not just for me, but obviously everyone listening as well. So there's absolutely no problem here. I think it's interesting that like Rock, Kaladin kind of wakes up and, like, we're gonna go out and bathe, and oh, by the way, Sigzil is a world singer. Like, yeah,
real
like chill. Rock. Have you ever heard of a transition? Like, what are you doing, dude?
Hey.
Like, just kind of tosses it at him a little bit there. But it's interesting that Teft is talking to Kaladin, and he says that he basically, like, the Parshendi kind of give him the creeps almost. So he's like, I don't know. I don't know about them. He's like, well, what do you mean? He's like, nothing. Never mind. He's like, I was just saying that you remind me of better days. It's like, Interesting. Okay, Teft.
All right, Teft. Old school Teft.
Yeah.
Getting a bit like incel Kabsal, buddy.
Yeah,
Watch out.
right.
You watch out. Incel tier list of Roshar. Kabsal at the top. Then
Absolutely.
we got non-Balat. You know,
Yeah,
chuck
dude, I
him
was
in
literally
there.
about to say non-Balat's on that list heavy.
Maybe Seth potentially, and I feel bad. I can't throw Seth in there. He's just troubled. You know, he needs some help.
Nah, call
Look,
spade a spade, bro. Just kidding.
call a rock. You know what I'm
Yeah.
saying? Call an
Dang it.
Earthstone what it is. Yeah, like how does he know about world singers? I don't think anyone else talks about world singers.
No, dude. It's a major revelation and a huge characteristic for this character.
I love all the rock hints. How he's like, you can't have my facial hair. That's reserved for like insert longhorn eater name here. Like there's so much culture up in those hot springs, you know.
And we'll be getting that novella only in a few short months. It feels.
Yeah, we will. And then we hear about like Sigzil, and he talks about his master, who I think the reveal is very soon. I think soon we have the Wonder Sail chapter where Hoyd's like, yo, heard you know Sigzil, let me play a flute. That happens. And then we get the connection from Sigzil about the blue vein people.
Yes.
Which Kaladin sees earlier. And it's like, he kind of like goes off on a tangent. He's like, yeah, I got imprisoned there. And he's like, some visitors find it unnerving, but I found the patterns beautiful. Almost irresistible.
Ooh.
I don't know, Sigzil. Like, I don't know if Sigzil's just got a thing, but I think, I mean, I'm not going to go into it because it's just like, you know, we're an hour and a half into this thing, but like probably some Cosmere magic vein thing. It's like a vein magic system.
Yeah, he's the compilation of a lot of things in the Cosmere, right? Magic wise. And we have reason to believe that from other pieces of the Cosmere.
Yeah, like there's more to that probably. Blue veins, probably some connection to the Amiens and Axis the Collector and changing their skin and color and stuff. So he messed up there. Then we learned about like their whole culture of like you have to be the oldest to rule, and they're just killing off everyone else, which felt very in tone with like Game of Thrones energy.
Yeah, definitely.
Which I enjoyed. I want to read a novella there. You know, it's like, oh, he's turned 63. Go get him.
Time to get him.
Yeah. And then like Sigzil and Rock had this moment where they're like, oh, you know something. Oh, you know something. When it's like Rock's talking about he had a mate that went to that place or something. And then Sigzil's like, that's a very long distance to travel for a Horn Eater. Like how, dude? And we know they got like some teleporting situation up there. Yeah, and then Rock's like, nearly the same distance for you, boy. So, you know, what are you talking about? You're a world singer, by the way. Like throws him like under the bus.
Kind of like you know my secret, I know your secret type deal. Yeah, a little bit of blackmail back and forth, possibly one upping.
Reminded me of a scene in another series with a I'll talk to you about it later, but like with a can of fish, which includes two people in.
I got you.
Great scene. The next thing I wanted to talk about briefly was when Kaladin is having this moment and he hears this quote in his head, turn a liability into an advantage whenever you can. These words had been spoken by a man who cared only for his own skin. Is that referring to Amaram?
It feels like it.
It feels like an Amaram moment, right?
It definitely does. Because
he feels like he has a few quotes going through his head here. And I'm like, oh, I feel like I should know who said these things. But it's probably like, that era of time.
Yeah, I think Amaram would be the example of this.
Mm. And I suppose the last bit is the Ho Bridge Boy moment. Hello, Bridge Boy. Toss a coin to your Bridge Boy.
I like that.
Toss a sphere to your Bridge Boy.
Yeah, and this is the beginning of a very complicated relationship that they will form, and then slowly, become close, which is nice to see.
Yeah.
And Kaladin's biases will obviously be on full display against him, and he'll have to overcome those and grow as a character and a person in Roshar. So pretty cool stuff.
Yeah, and Kaladin does blush seeing the safe hand. We can't blame him. It is the world he lives in. I don't know. I just find that really funny. Any sort of safe hand, like, oh, her safe hand's uncovered. Good on you, Sanderson. Immersing us. But yeah, look, you're right. The only other thing is the Syl fuzzing at Odium, which just seems, there's not much to say about that. It's pretty obvious. But yeah, man, wow. 2 very dense chapters, good character moments, good lore, good week of Lost in Roshar, if I do say so myself.
Yeah, I would say this is one of our bigger episodes and a lot of stuff. And we're sure that we could have extrapolated on more stuff like this. So let us know if there's other stuff you want us to talk about from these chapters, and give us your thoughts about them as well. Towards the end of the year, we're probably going to be reading out some span reads and whatnot. We have a backlog that is quite honestly overwhelming. So we will probably have an episode maybe on one of the shorter chapter weeks where we're going to read through some of them. And I imagine these 2 chapters are going to be a driving force in people wanting to reach out. Yeah,
guys, thank you for the span reads. We do read them. We just save them to reply to on the podcast. So we're not ghosting you. We do read them. But I mean, listen on. They'll show up eventually. There's some amazing span reads that I want to talk about straight away, but then our episodes would get so long. And I feel like once you get to an hour and a half, like we have now, it's like, probably as far as you take it.
Yeah, and then also whenever you put your email out there, you get a bunch of spam as well, so we have to sift through all that.
That also happens. But someone did find a place on Google Maps called Kremling, and I'm going to shout that one out because that's great.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
There is. That's where we're all meeting up one day. We're scuttling on over. But yeah, as always, guys, thanks for accompanying us on this episode of Lost in Roshar. Remember, the most important chapter a man can read is the next one. We'll see you next week to dive into chapters 47, 48, and 49.
And if you enjoyed this episode of the podcast, be sure to leave us a review on whichever platform you listen on. And if you have any theories that you want to talk about or some of these chapter reviews, make sure to send us a span read at lostinroshar@gmail.com. We'll see you next time on Lost in Roshar. Remember, all you scoundrels out there, to keep that safe hand covered.